Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time watching a video of mine, which that wouldn't really surprise me, then just welcome. Today I will tell the story of the newspaper incident, which no one else calls it that but me, and then they make it sound like a way more badass story than it really is, but bear with me, and I have to apologize ahead of time if I ramble on too much, because I'm talking English. I'm from Norway. It's not my first language. I do know it quite well, but sometimes I have to think a bit to come up with the right words to describe something, and that's pretty important in a story. And this is like my sixth or seventh time trying to record this. I don't even know. It's been too many times. So this story takes place when I was pretty young in Norway. Elementary school is from 1st to 7th grade, so I think it was in elementary school. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was in elementary school. And I was probably like 8, 9, 10, ish, probably 9 years old. So, me and my friends were playing around in, the street where I lived, and I was hanging around. I think I was hanging out with 2 or 3 other friends. Now, one of my friends lived in the same street as me, the street we were playing around in. Now, this, the geographical location of the story is kind of important because, in Norway there's a lot of mountains. Where I live, there is a lot of hills, because I still live in the same town that this story takes place in. Now, to make room for more houses and more properties in general, they decided to basically cut off a hill, use explosions to, cut off a hill like they often do to make room for more properties and to make room for a brand new street. Now, this means that in the middle of where I live, there is a cliff. And this cliff is not ridiculously large, but it's still so large, or so, tall, I guess you could say, that if you went off of it, you would probably break every bone in your body, or at least get brain damage. Or both. Probably both. Me and my friends, we used to play around that hill, cliff a lot. Just for fun, because we felt like we were kind of badass if we did it, because right now there's a really fucking, tall fence there, but when I used to play around there when I was young, the fence was really short. Now, the cliff is, really fun to throw shit off of. Like, any cliff is fun to throw shit off of when you're a kid. We couldn't really throw that much shit off of the cliff because at the bottom of the cliff, there was a street with houses, and the gardens were basically, right at the bottom of the cliff, there were some gardens, and then some houses, and then the street. So if we threw anything off the cliff, it would just end up in a bunch of, end up in someone's garden down there, and that wasn't really nice. Now, we were bored probably, so we decided to go to this one little, hill. So there was this hill, and in this one hill, I don't know why, but some newspaper boys somewhere, or some newspaper boys, whatever, used to dump their newspapers there. Whenever, I guess, they didn't sell, or whenever they couldn't deliver them for some reason, or if they had leftovers, they would just throw them there. Like piles and piles of newspapers. Now, we didn't think it was that much big of a deal to take the newspapers, because, they were old, and, they were blue and pink, because, all the text had been washed out from, because they had been there quite a while. So we thought no one would really miss these. And, we were right, no one really missed them. So we thought it would be a brilliant idea to take some sticks and basically knock the newspapers down the cliff. Just throw them up in the air, take a stick, and just hit it as hard as we could to see how far we could make the newspapers fly off the cliff. Now, the problem with this idea, as I said earlier, is that there are gardens and houses at the bottom of the cliff. And we didn't knock them so far that they went out in the actual street. So they just landed on this property. Now, there's a yellow house there. I don't know who lived there back then, and I don't know who lives there now. But, I think whoever lives in that house back then wouldn't really appreciate if some asshole kids knocked a bunch of newspapers down in their garden. We tried to make newspapers, at least I tried to make newspapers land on the roof. They landed even on the cliff, and they landed in the garden, and on the bushes, on the trees, and everything like that. So they weren't really happy about that. So 3 teens, and I think only one of the teens lived in that house, and the 2 others were his friends, started climbing up this cliff and decided to confront us and ask why we were doing what we were doing. As pretty reasonable, honestly. But you can imagine, like, us three just laughing and kicking newspapers down. We were going to get more. And then these three teenagers, when we were still pretty small kids, came up and, wanted to know why we were doing. Now, I was, young, so I was much shorter than they were. And I was pretty small for my age. So they were like giants that just came climbing up the cliff. Like some, like, bedtime story coming real for me back then, which they weren't that tall at all. They were probably like 13, 14 years old, which aren't that tall in general. Now, they wanted to ask us why we were doing, and I guess we were so shit scared that we didn't really, answer them or something like that. But they mainly wanted us, come down the cliff, very reasonable, climb down a cliff and collect the newspapers from their garden and also from the cliff. From the garden and from the cliff, and I don't think the roof, because we probably wouldn't be able to do that. That's all reasonable. It makes sense, and I think everyone can agree on that. It makes sense. Now, that doesn't mean that it's, but for us, we were kids. We were like, fuck that, or I was kind of like, fuck that, I don't want to do that. That sounds stupid. Like, why should I do that? Why should I be punished for being a jerk to other people's, like, basically trashing someone else's property? Now, we would probably have ended up having to do it because, I wanted to run away, but, my kind of brain was saying, okay, that teenager could probably catch me. And I don't really want to find out what happens when he catches me. I was thinking that logic. Now, as I said, I lived on that street we were standing on, which was on the top of the cliff, and my friend was also living in the same street as mine. Now, his mom had been out grocery shopping, or had, come home from work, and she was walking up the street and saw this incident happen, and she saw her son in the midst of this, and, she probably recognized me and my friends as well, because, we were a pretty tight group of friends back then. Now, and, she probably thought, what the hell is happening here? So she confronted the teenagers, and when they probably told what happened, and we probably kind of told what happened, then she kind of came to the conclusion, okay, I don't want these kids, these really young-ass kids, to climb around on that cliff and potentially fall down, or have to go down into a stranger's garden to collect newspapers. So she said to them, very straightforward, they are not doing it. Like, she was just, they are not doing it. Now, the teenagers, I think they were, like, so young that they just listened to adults. They weren't like the teenagers that are so old that they're like, fuck what adults say, like, we're not listening to you. They were so young that, like, when adults told them to do something, they probably did it. Which is exactly what they did. They left us alone, they went down, and probably had to clean up the mess we made. So... and then we just went home. I just went home, and I was kind of scared for a day that I would get yelled on by my parents, because I thought, his mom was going to tell my parents about what happened, and then I would get, grounded or just punished for what happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I was treated just the same when I came home. So that's the moral of the story. That's the moral today, guys. If you do something, shit to someone else, you can get none of the consequences at all. That's basically what happened. We did something that was bad that we probably should have been punished for in some way. We just didn't get punished. Now, we didn't think what we did was so bad. We didn't do it to be assholes. We did it because we just weren't thinking. But we should still have been punished for it. But we never did it again. So, I guess it wasn't necessary. But we just never got punished for it. Which is the moral of the story. The moral of the story, kids... if you do an asshole thing while you're a kid, you can get away with it with no consequences. Great lesson. So, thank you guys so much for listening to the story. I know this went on a bit longer than I would like to, but I just need to explain everything in detail so you guys don't get too confused. Maybe that didn't really help much, because even I would be kind of confused if I listened to the story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I want to tell more stories in the future. Talk to you guys next time or later. Bye.